I hit the go live. All right, so hi everybody. We are live. I'm letting the ladies share their page, so that's why they're not looking up. So thank you so much for tuning in to celebrating the brand ambassador. This is I'm losing track, 15th or 16th episode of celebrating the brand ambassador. I'm really excited to have these two women on with me today. I've known them a majority of my career, even though I'm older than most of them. But I always felt much cooler when I was hanging out with them. And I'm really excited to watch them. I've seen both of you kind of change in your careers over time. So with me is BRITTANY LITTRELL and Andie Boozer and Shaker Ferman. Woohoo! All right, ladies, were you able to do all the things? Yeah, there you go. All right, so
everything's ready to go.
Okay, great. So, okay, so usually I start off, and if anybody, when you start tuning in, you can always type things in the chat. And ladies, great thing about this, I will see the chat come up and I can actually click on it and it will show up on our page, which is awesome. So this has been a series, and we've talked about this, of sharing best practices. And both of you have different jobs than anybody I've spoken to so far. BRITTANY, you dealing with a lot with the distributor, and Andie, you deal a lot with BDMs. Brand development managers, right? So this a title, if for those of you out there, you have to learn so many acronyms. So I thought I'd start off with the first question, which I ask everybody. So I'll start with you, BRITTANY. Tell us what your job title is and what your responsibilities are. And then Andie.
So I work with Maison Ferrand. I've been with them for 6 years, going on to my 7th now. And my title is on-premise manager for New York State. When I got hired 6 years ago, it was one of the first things I said, this is not a brand ambassador role. It was kind of a hybrid, kind of new position where, I don't think there were a lot of other on-premise managers in the sense of, basically an 80-20 split, on-premise manager and brand ambassador role, kind of hybrid. And, Guillaume Lamy, the vice president of the company, wanted a nice mix of that, but we are based off sales, and there are goals, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a mix of both. And I mean, any on-premise person or any person working with a brand should always consider themselves a brand ambassador anyway. I mean, you don't kind of delineate between the two, but yeah.
No, I think that's really true. And I also, I think now that's becoming a more common title, the on-premise manager.
Sure. I got a lot of people reaching out to me in my first, second, third year of kind of what is it your role is, and can you people that were looking to hire somebody kind of what I in the similar sense of what I do. So I had a lot of questions on kind of my roles and what that actually meant, but we'll get out.
Which I think is. Yeah, no, which I think it's really important, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, it's something I was saying to BRITTANY the other day. It's something now I recommend to people when they're saying we're about to launch a brand. Like, if we could have any role, I'm like, you should have an on-premise manager. I'm like, somebody who knows how to deal with a distributor, who works as your brand ambassador, and who knows how to sell. I'm like, it's the best role. It's not saying brand ambassadors aren't important. It's just that is for a small company, that's the best role. That's a really good role to have, as if you can only have one person. So Andie, why don't you tell what is your role? And yes.
Who am I? So I'm Andie Ferman. Right? Who am I? This is a question I ask myself every day. So I'm Andie Ferman, and I work for Hotaling & Co., which is the new name for a relatively old company. I think that most people, certainly here in California, are familiar with Anchor Steam, very famous brewery out of San Francisco. But Hotaling & Co. used to be called Anchor Distilling. And as far as our primary products and my role, Junipero Gin, Old Potrero Rye Whiskey. These are our signature spirits that are actually distilled in San Francisco. I'm considered a portfolio specialist. And it is true that my role is to assist our business development managers throughout the state of California. However, that role has dramatically changed given the pandemic. I almost feel like we should just call it Voldemort. Let's call it Voldemort. COVID-19 ruining our lives. At any rate, so I do assist the BDMs. I am also somebody who engages in virtual activities like Instagram Live interviews. Did a whole series. So I think that all of us, indeed, whether or not we have more of a sales functionality, distributor management, on or off premise, we're all brand ambassadors. So Brittany, I totally agree with you. Like if you think that you're going out not representing that brand or the company that you work for, you always are on and you're being watched.
Oh yeah.
Sounds creepy, right?
It's so true though. I mean, you know, like anybody who's behind the bar right now or on the floor, I mean, consider it a working interview. Like you're always being watched, even from the brand side. You know, somebody that can slay it behind the bar, the personality, can multitask, you know, that's intriguing to a brand, and that's somebody that will be approached by a brand for a hire. You know, you're constantly, no matter what side you're on, showcasing who you are, your talents, and what you can offer. So it's
yeah, no, a lot of people have brought that up, that working behind a bar, you're a representative of the bar when you're out, so you have to be cognizant of that. Yeah. I know people have to sign contracts with their bars that says you will not be drunk, you know, wearing our paraphernalia while you're out. Like if you're going to go to a bar, go to where somebody does, if you want to get your drink on, go to a bar and nobody knows you. Like just because you are representing, you are the face of our bar. But I also agree, you are being, I literally have not hired, like when I worked for Diageo, you know, they would come to me and they say, Elaine, you know, have you heard of this person or that person? You know, and sometimes I've literally had to say, hi, Julia. I literally have had to say, you know, I've had to turn down people I was friends with. And I was like, I gotta be honest with you, I wouldn't hire this person. I'm like, I've seen the way they are behind their bar and it's not pretty. And I can't imagine them. I can imagine them for a different brand, but not in our world, especially in Diageo, which is so corporate, and not everybody's going to be friends, you know, can make it in corporate. It's such a different world. And I have literally lost friends over because they found out that I said no. I was like, guys, you would hate it. I was doing it for your own good as well. Like it would not be the right fit.
Absolutely. A lot of people romanticize about getting onto the brand side without thinking what brand fits them. You know, going into a super corporate role after being maybe behind a bar that's a little bit more lax is a very big change. It, you know, from the outside, it might seem super glamorous to people, right? You know, we're always having fun. We're always hosting the parties. We're always da-da-da-da-da. But, you know, emails start at 8 a.m. no matter how late you're at. You know, it's not all glamour and like rainbows and like butterflies, you know? There's a big business aspect to it, and a lot of people don't kind of grasp that when they're going, I want to be a brand ambassador, I want to be a whatever manager, etc. So, you know, you have to understand that.
Yeah, and it almost feels like you're getting into politics, right?
Yeah,
right. You're in the public eye, and it's sad, Elaine, that you know, it's sad to think that those rules had to come into play in the first place. Also, like, hey, so when you're out and about, maybe don't go crazy. I mean, when I go out and decide to get insane, I just don't wear the hat, and then no one knows who I am. It works for me. But not just kidding, y'all. I used to make the joke, like, if I'm going to rob banks, I know what I'm going to do. Dun-dun-dun. I'll wear colors and not a hat, you know.
I used to say I won't sell within a 4-block radius of my house.
Yeah. Something just fell down in my office. Everybody
agree.
Okay over there? Yeah. No, it's so true. But also, let's talk about being on the job, because Brittany, you talked about this, and I want to talk about some of the skill sets you take from the bar into this world. So, Brittany, I know that's how you got your job. You were discovered at Death & Company.
I was discovered, yes. You know, I was working the floor at Death & Co. And prior to that, I was bartending at the Shanty. And Alan Katz is one of my favorite people on the face of the planet and one of my mentors. And you know, I kind of started thinking about the next steps, and you know, that maybe looking for a brand, and you know, Alan, you know, why don't you maybe think about working for Southern Wine and Spirits? And you know, for me, absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's a fantastic job, but I'm not one who can just go around and sell apple clippers and not have that passion behind the products I'm selling and what have you. So I kind of just kept my head down, worked, and at Death & Co., my manager, Francois, was a regular. And, you know, so over time, we got to chatting and talking, and the relationship started growing, and I heard they were hiring, and I reached out to him, and it was kind of just it all clicked. It was a perfect fit. The portfolio, the people behind it, everything was just exactly what I wanted. And, you know, I love having the sales aspect. I am somebody that is numbers focused. I love closing a deal. I love the challenge of it all. I love, oh my God, that's my goal. That's completely outside. That's crazy, but you know, it's a challenge that I thoroughly enjoy.
Which is awesome. Not many people love that challenge.
I've never worked for another brand, and I, you know, I found the right fit right away, which is like, I feel very lucky for that.
No, absolutely. And Andie, I know you've worked. I mean, when I met you, you were working at St. George Spirits, but before that, you also worked in the bar industry. So, were there things that you have taken it like? Things you think you took maybe from both jobs that have made it possible to do your job now even better? Like, you know, from working behind the bar to working at the distillery, I mean, you gave me the best tour ever at St. George, you know, supplied us with all the products. But being behind the bar, and Brittany, I would love to hear that too, because you worked on the floor and you worked behind the bar of, you know, skill sets that really have helped you, like multitasking and things of that nature. So, Andie, I want to start with you. Like, what are some skill sets you think from being behind the bar now apply to the job you're working in?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. I would say not that you pressed me to only give you one word, hospitality. Hospitality.
Yeah.
Right? Hospitality is a mix of both service and theater, right? So how do you entertain and how do you take care? How do you invite someone into the fold? I think that a lot of, and Brittany, I'm sure you feel the same way, and you as well, Elaine, that you have to be a storyteller. Mm-hmm. You have to be engaging. You have to be thoughtful. And I think that certainly working in hospitality in the service industry prior to working at St. George Spirits and then currently with Hotaling & Co., patience too. My goodness. Right?
Yes,
you learn, you have to learn patience, and you have to learn to also be strategic in the way that you communicate. Right? You can't just be emotionally unstable and fly off the handle because someone doesn't give you a tip, right? I remember learning that lesson early on. It's like, wow, okay, you have to be good, kind, thoughtful, and take a step back and recognize that if somebody is maybe not pleased, it may not actually be about you.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a great
lessons
lesson
to learn, right? Like maybe you aren't doing the job that you need to be doing. So hospitality, I think, is number one. And it's still an educational experience for me every day, because that's what I want to be able to give people, and I want it in exchange. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You have to build a relationship. You know, you can't just go in somewhere and expect something right away. You know, you have to lay the foundation for a relationship that's going to last for a long time. You know, these buyers, these beverage directors, whether they are at one bar, move to another, what have you, if the foundation for that relationship is solid and they're going to take you wherever they go. And that relationship is going to transcend into whatever role they move forward in. And, you know, you have to be patient. You have to build a foundation that is mutually beneficial, and that, you know, a lot of my genuinely best friends are, you know, from being Maison Ferrand's on-premise manager, and just the relationship grew from, you know, kind of a business aspect to, you know, all my homies, which is super fun. It's great. You get to meet so many fantastic people. But
let's talk about that, building the relationships, because that is a huge part of the job, whether you're a brand ambassador or you're a sales rep or you're an on-premise manager. So, you know, it is about, I want to talk about building relationships with not only like the accounts, like the people, and how that helps you kind of close deals, which we'll talk about, but also building relationships with the people you work with, like the BDMs and the sales reps, and like why that's important. So Brittany, I'll start with you, because I know you talked a lot about like building relationships with your accounts has become like one of your fundamentals of how you close the deal. So what are some of the things you do to build relationships with some of your accounts, people you've never met before?
Well, you know, I like to consider myself a facilitator. I like giving everybody that works with me on the rep side, on the buyer side, all the tools to facilitate what they need. You know, my role is to educate, to, you know, bring samples, to meet buyers, to facilitate these 30 plus sales force and everybody to, you know, work with me to get to my goals, you know, and I give everybody the tools they absolutely need. You know, there is little space for failure in meeting your goals. And so it's a facilitator role and kind of just being the jack of all trades and filling in the gaps and stepping up, doing trainings, or, you know, I have a rep call me, you know, I have a meeting with a buyer of this group tomorrow at da-da-da. You just make it work. I hate the word can't, and I hate the word no. There's like, that doesn't have any space in my world. So you just make it work and you figure it out. We're all big multitaskers. We are the jack of all trades on just figuring it out on the fly, right? We have to do that. And behind the bar, on the floor, you have to do that all the time. So I think that's definitely one of the things that kind of transcends into this role, is just making it work and figuring it out and giving everybody the tools they need to do the best job they can.
No, I think that's a big thing. And for you, how do you build it? Because, you know, when you first meet your BDMs, or your brand development managers, for those of you who don't speak the language, because there's so many acronyms, you know, sometimes you come in, they don't know you. Like, they don't know you. They've never met you. You might have a reputation, but still sales reps see people go, brand ambassadors, you know, business development managers, sales reps, you know, they've been burnt before. They've met shitty people who work in the industry, bad brand ambassadors, right? So you have to kind of build up some trust with them. So, you know, what were how were some of the ways that you support your accounts, that you've built a relationship with your BDMs so that they want to work with you, that you guys can work together to achieve goals?
Yeah. Curiosity. I think generally wanting to get to know them as individuals, where they're at, what their approach is. And this certainly applies to my team, my fellow BDMs, or my fellow Hotaling & Co. employees, but also to every account you walk into. If you're walking in with just, I have a goal, I'm going to sell you something, that's a one-sided relationship. It's not reciprocal, right? It's like, I want to go in and learn everything about that bar. I want to drink it in, right? I want to experience it and get to know what their goals are, and then how we can meet each other. But I think it does start generally with curiosity. Like, I love people. I'm an extrovert. They probably should ban me from the Trader Joe's because I get weird with people in line. You know, I'm just like, oh, I see that you're getting the chili.
Oh,
do you work here?
Yeah.
Oh, it froze. Darn it. But that mango is delicious. The internet, y'all. The internet, right? If only it could always work. But I think that going in, being curious, genuinely wanting to get to know them, because then I can, you know, get all their information. It's always beneficial to be curious and want to genuinely know who they are.
And nobody ever wants to feel like they're like, you know, being used for a sale. You know, once you take hospitality, once you take the interpersonal relationship out of it and look at somebody as a dollar sign or a number or goal, you're going to have this relationship that's toxic. It's just not going to work. And it's translucent. They're going to see right through you on that. And it's boring that way. That's no fun. That's not why we're doing this. So absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah. No, could be like Tinder. Sorry,
yeah, exactly.
Tinder.
I mean, Brittany, you said something to me yesterday, and it was about, we were talking about, you know, building that relationship with your sales reps, and it was about, you know, supporting them so they get excited, because there's so many brands, right? They have so many brands to work with. So how do you get them to focus on your brand?
Whoa. Years and years and years of relationship. No, I mean, I've been with the same distributor for 7 years, so I've known a lot of these people for a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. It certainly does not. You know, you kind of have to prove your worth to them for them to start utilizing what they know you can offer to the accounts to, you know, facilitate a sale for them.
How do you prove your worth? How do you prove your worth? I know that I think
a lot of the times I go and sell without them being there, and I call and I say, hey, I just sold XYZ here. And, you know, they just start seeing that, hey, this girl's out there hustling in some of the top accounts in New York City and actually making me money. I mean, when it comes down to that, that's, you know, that's where you get people responding to you more. I know that sounds a little a little, you know, shitty, but, you know, it's kind of the way it is. But the relationship's built from there, but it's not overnight. You know,
no, it definitely takes time, right? You have to prove to them you can sell. You have to communicate with them. So you're playing a team. So your win is their win. It's like, hey, I just didn't do this incredible thing. Like, hey, we had a great win in this account. Like, and this is what I did. Like, how can I?
Yeah, and then you find your core sales reps that you just love working with. Like, I have, you know, on a daily basis, just my top 12, if you will, just like we're tag teaming the city. It's absolutely, you know, hey, Britt, can you get a sample here by the end of the day? Can you get, you know, whatever. I'm like, and it goes back and forth. And we just literally have kind of a flow and a team that is working for, you know, the greater good for everybody. You know, I'm meeting my goals. They're getting commissions. We're, you know, spreading the knowledge of the Maison Ferrand portfolio, which is super exciting to me. And you know, it's just fun, honestly. And then, you know, I reps out for drinks. Hey, Britt, I just got a new Mai Tai on this menu. Cool, let's go have a drink there. And, you know, it's a relationship after a long kind of courting period. You know, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? Okay, now I trust you. Let's do this.
Let's hit it. No, I agree. It does take time. So you do have to be patient, and you can't just try to like force something in. You have to do the research. You have to do like a courting. It's like a date. It's like you have to like get to know each other. And Andie, what have you? I know right now during COVID it's a little bit harder, and we'll talk about. I know you've done some fun things, but like to get to know an account. So you don't know anybody in the account. You don't have any connections. What are some of the things? And Brittany, I'd love to hear you talk about this. Like, how do you get to, before you introduce them to any brands, what are some of the things you'll do to get to know the account?
Yeah. So you go in. You go in, you sit down. Well, again, can we not talk about COVID times? We'll just move right past that. You go in, you sit down, you get to know them. Yeah. And certainly COVID presented a much larger challenge. But moving forward, since there is light at the end of our proverbial tunnel, y'all, feeling so good about the future. Future's bright. I got to wear shades. You know what I mean?
So bright.
It's so bright. I'm so excited. I'm just like, I can taste it, right?
One vaccine in, baby. One vaccine in.
Yes!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Anyway.
Brittany is fully vaccinated. I get my second shot on Sunday.
So
woo-hoo! I turn into an Easter bunny. It's going to be great, you know? You go in, you sit down, you get to know them. I think that's the key, is actually going into the account.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Uh-oh. Andie, stop interfering. But yeah, it's not that hard to wrap your head around. Like, it's not, you know the account, you go in, you have a drink, you shoot the shit, and you go in a few times, and you're eventually going to meet the person that you want to talk to or need to talk to. And it's going to be, oh, I've seen this person in here a handful of times. You know, cool. Yeah, let's chat about what I can offer you and vice versa. It's, again, the foundation.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And let's talk about also timing. When do you go and do this? Friday. This is the thing that a lot of new brand ambassadors do wrong, right? Good, yeah. What'd you say, Brittany? 5 o'clock on Friday, right?
Right before service.
Yeah. Friday night, 11 p.m., 10 deep. What's up?
I know. Hey,
I have samples for you.
It's so sad but true.
Again, it's almost sad that we even have to talk about this, to be honest with you, on the timing thing. It's like, for me, sometimes the lack of common sense when it comes to this is just like, makes me want to smash my head on, the table. But again, if you don't know, you don't know. Here we are to tell you. Just be mindful of when and how you approach a buyer. The second you approach a buyer and piss them off the first step, you're going to have a really hard time selling to that account in the future. They remember you. They remember
forever.
You. And they're going to have a big F you on their forehead pretty much every time you reach out to them. So.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I've had so many people say that they're like, Elaine, can you just, like, when I was telling people I was training brand ambassadors, like, can you just tell them not to show them fucking Friday at 5 o'clock? Or like when I'm 3 deep and I was like, are you serious? And we did that. They're like, oh yeah. They're like holding their bottle like, hey, I want to taste you on something. And they're like in the weeds and they're like dude, seriously, look where you are, you know, and how to have that conversation. But doing your research is also something we were talking about, which I think is really important, not just showing up blind, because I think accounts get, my ex-husband taught me that like a long time ago. He owns a bunch of restaurant bars, and he said, I would watch him just like dismiss sales reps. He's like, you've never been to my place.
Yeah, know your client, know your customer, know the account, you know, like do your due diligence. It's almost insulting if you don't.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So I kind of like, so I think that's a really important thing. So Andie, I know you've done some interesting things during COVID to get to know some of your accounts and to support them. So I would love to talk about it, because I know it hasn't been hard, but you did like some tastings, some interesting. Want to talk about that?
Yes. So offering up the virtual package, which is totally understandable that businesses
I'm looking at questions. Go ahead.
Different at this time, right? But to be able to offer them that educational layer, to be like, you sell these kits, I'll do the Zoom live class and do it from soup to nuts. Like, it could be very hands-off for them, or they could be more involved. It was basically offering what we all needed to do, which was pivot, right? And expose ourselves to the World Wide Web, you know, to get out there and to offer them something different, an extra added benefit, if you will. I found it to be very helpful. And it's interesting when it's a person that I've already maybe been, I'm going to say, in a deeper, stronger relationship with, then they kind of know what I can offer them. When it's a new account, I'm like, I can assure you, I'll do this Zoom class and these people are going to love it. You know, glitter's going to come out of my eyeballs. You want me to do this class for you. And might be a harder sell, but I'm persistent. I think in a thoughtful way. Yeah. Yes. I also did. I feel like, you know, doing the virtual element was really key and clutch to add that, or to offer that. I also was bringing care packages to accounts. I'm like, here's, you know, gloves, here's cookies, here's masks, here's whatever you need. That was my initial reaction, was what can I give people to make them feel supported and safe? Just because it was such a strange time. Not that everyone necessarily has the ability to bring things, but I like to think that I was bringing some emotional support along with a few nominal physical items, just to show that I did care. I think which I think is. I think that's great. And also the fact that the virtual packages, I mean, Brittany, I know you were driving around like buying drinks and throwing them in the trunk of your car because you're like, I can't drink them, but I can at least
I would call up like Eric Job and be like, hey, you want to roll around with me today? And you know, I mean, it's being supportive in a way that isn't asking for anything. You are just there because you've had the relationship, you are part of this industry, and what can we do to get through this together? And letting them know that they're not alone and that we'll be here and we'll get through it together, I think was the kind of strength that I tried to show throughout the pandemic. And, you know, there's been several people call me, you know, New York is bustling right now, and they're starting to buy again. And, you know, it necessarily wasn't an account that I had a lot of, you know, sales in. And you know, I was like, I got a call. Hey, Britt, I just want to let you know all your support over this past year hasn't gone unnoticed. Your gin, your rum, and et cetera are in the well. And I just want to reciprocate what you did over the whole year. You know, and I never had any intention of asking or anything. It was just, you show the support without asking for anything. And I don't know how that sometimes was lost in translation with a lot of people. Like,
it was.
Still has goals. I mean, I honestly work for a company that is so kind of in touch and in tune with the community that was okay. You know, we adjusted, and that kind of support was encouraged. And, you know, again, not everybody had that, but I think it was really to support without expecting something. And
I think that's going to go a long way. I've heard it from a lot of accounts. They're like, we're going to remember the brands that supported us, because some brands just disappeared.
They're ghosted.
they just ghosted. And some of it was because the brands were concerned for their brand ambassadors and were like, hey, we don't want you out there because we don't want you with safety. But it was like, they were just like, yeah, don't bother and the accounts were like, yeah, I could have used you, like anything. And they're like, I've heard many accounts say to me, like, I'm going to remember the accounts. I'm going to remember the people who supported us during this time. And there's the ones I'm going to be working with in the future. So yeah.
This is our community. You know, we have to support our community, you know, our side, their side, owners, etc. It's a community as a whole. Once you take one part of that dynamic out, you know, you lose a major part of this community. And so it takes everybody to support when one side of it is losing. Yeah. You know, I think.
Absolutely. So Brittany, I want to get into, because you do something really unique that most people, like, I think the distributor for many of us is a mystery. If you hadn't, or for many new brand ambassadors, if they haven't worked with them very long and they haven't gotten to know them and how they work. So your part of your job is to help manage the distributor relationship with your brand, which also requires setting incentives in place. So I think many people will be curious about what that actually means. Like, what do you need to do quarterly with the distributor, and then what exactly are incentives and how do they work?
Well, I've been lucky enough to kind of, I've been working with Francois as my manager. So he's kind of shown me the ins and outs of, you know, distributor management. You know, I'm still learning this. There's a lot of, it goes deep, but, you know, the incentives per se, it's kind of, you have to fine tune it a little bit. You know, you have to make the incentive intriguing enough for a rep, not just to scroll by it and pass you over. You know, you have to put sales goals on whatever brands that you're trying to push at the time. That makes sense. You know, we maybe, you know, O&D, we push the cognac, right? Maybe in spring, we, you know, put incentives on our rum and gin. You know, it has to make sense. And it always changes. I don't think there is a perfect incentive. It's a challenging space, to be honest with you. But you know, you just kind of go with what your sales goal are for the year, what your key brands, the ones you want to kind of push and promote. So
no, that makes sense. But I was gonna say, but you're competing because this is, you know, and you helped teach me this because I wasn't sure how they worked, and I asked you a while ago. It's like, you know, sitting down, because as a brand ambassador, you should be aware what incentives are being put into place for all the brands. Because if you're competing against, you're selling a tequila and you find out, like when I used to work for Don Julio, and then I'd be like, why isn't anybody like selling Don Julio this month? This is before Don Julio was as big as it was, because Patron had a giant incentive in place, and they're really pushing it. So knowing when the incentives were coming, like if I knew Patron was coming 2 months from now, and I better get all my fucking Don Julio placements in the next like 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is an aggressive kind of, you know, dynamic, but you know, again, I think it's just a quarterly distinction of what you want to push, and getting the reps fired up about it is not easy. And, you know, sometimes, you know, say, I'm just throwing out a number, but a $20 incentive on a pot is not anything to the people who are selling the Patrons and have this, you know, very large incentive. So it's, you pick and choose your battles on that one. For me, incentives certainly work in the off-premise a little bit more than on, I would say. And that's where I think they really get some results. For me, on-premise, it's me hustling.
Yeah.
more than the sales and marketing calendar, to be honest with you. But
that makes sense. I mean, let's talk about the off-premise, because Andie, I know that became part of your very challenging part of your job during COVID, and I know Brittany, this is going to become part of your. Brittany just got a promotion.
I did. Yeah. I am managing upstate retail market for New York starting tomorrow.
So I thought we'd kind of share some experiences. So Andie, what are share some of your experiences and challenges?
Well, I will say that it is a different world, the off versus the on when it comes to licensees. I found it to be a challenge just because, traditionally speaking, this was my perception, I should say, going into it, was that I often got the response of, well, what are the deals? What are the deals, right? Whereas so much of my experience and what I found to be probably the most interesting was the storytelling aspects of making the sale, right? It's like, ultimately we are looking to sell a product, but we're doing it in a way that's more, I want you to be a fan and really appreciate the juice, the story, right?
Yeah.
And my initial reaction was that it didn't feel like a lot of the off-premise folks that I was being exposed to, if you will, exposing myself to, were necessarily, you know, digging what I was putting down. But that's where I found that it's because I hadn't had those relationships nor the time to build those relationships. And what I've found, and it's actually quite different, is that with off-prem, the folks that are there are usually lifers.
Yeah.
So if you do build those relationships, it's, dare I say it, it's almost like, okay, this person's going to be like my partner in crime at this particular liquor store for a very long time. They don't quite, right? They don't quite have the turnaround that perhaps most of us are used to when it comes to the on-prem. For bars and restaurants, where people they're moving and they're shaking, you know, they're moving on. Maybe they're not going to stay there forever. Whereas I did find that to be like, wow, that's a true benefit, that you build that relationship and it's fairly secure. That person's going to be there for a long time. Quite often they're the owner, in which case, boom, they've bought that job and they're not leaving that job, right? So it was a challenge at first, but I actually see it now as like, that was a worthy challenge. And it just meant I had to shift my perspective.
What do they want to hear from you? What do you want to do? The ones that just want the deals, like, is it just like, they just want to know the facts, right? Like, what do you got for me?
Yeah, you got to be prepared. You got to be able to communicate. You have to then go back and follow up and say, hey, I sent you all this pricing, so what's going on, right? Sorry, I set an alarm to remind me, literally remind me about, hey, check what's going on. So I think that's the key, is that you follow through, you communicate effectively, right? You're not just popping in, dropping off a card and never returning and expecting a sale. It's that you really do have to go back in and give them what they need, which is the numbers.
Yep.
Right?
And so for a brand that nobody knows, like Junipero is a very small brand. I love it. I have my story. I told you about my crazy story about a guy in Aspen who I met like 20 years ago, who then sent me a bottle of fucking Junipero in exchange for some plastic martini glasses I gave him at Aspen Food and Wine Festival. It was crazy, but he loved this brand so much. And that was the last time I ever saw it.
That's the key of follow through, though. You sure that he wasn't an employee?
Yeah, maybe he was. Maybe he was, but he was really into it. So when you have a small brand that nobody's ever heard of, because a lot of those smaller stores that they're owned by the owner, I call it the corner store, right? So it's here in New York, and I know in small towns it's different. Like here in New York, the corner store guy, he sells mostly the popular brands. He doesn't sell craft brands because he's not selling. He's not on the floor. Astor Wine and Spirits are people on the floor. They're introducing you to brands. So it really was like, I never heard of your brand. Who's buying it? And my customer's not buying that because they're just in here for like the Jack Daniels and the brands that they know. So sometimes I'd be like, this is not a place to waste my time because I'm working on a brand that nobody knows. So I'm going to go to the craft store.
You start to know your customer, know your consumer. You have to think about that a little bit. Your time.
Did you find that? Do you just have to walk away? Sometimes you're just like, yep, this is not my account.
Yeah, and I think it's being realistic about the expectations too. And it's also, hey, I don't know why I keep wanting to reference Tinder. It's like, you're very nice, but you're not the right fit for me. No, thank you, right? And then you have to say, I heard, you said no, thank you, right? Ultimately, you do have to weigh what is that cost benefit? If you're going to continue to go back and the person's like, seriously, please leave me alone. This isn't going to be a good fit, but really it should probably be you as the brand ambassador, or if you are the regional sales manager, whatever it might be, you'll have to ultimately make that decision because you've put in the time. We're all told don't take no for an answer. And I would agree with that to a certain extent, but perhaps there was another brand. And luckily for Hotaling & Co., we have this incredible portfolio. So if I'm not going to be able to fit Junipero gin onto that shelf, then probably I've got something else that would be a perfect fit.
Same with Ferrand. Right? There's something for everybody, right?
Exactly.
No, I think that's important, and because there is that thing about you. I have heard that off-premise, some of them want to hear the story, like the craft stores. They want to know the story behind it because they're going to be selling it. They want to love the brand, but what are some have you had any crazy requests, like for the TV or because there are brands. I mean, I was working for what brand? We were doing the part-time brand ambassador program, and literally that was part of the deal. Like you bought 6 cases, you got a flat screen. I mean, that was part of the deal. That brand ambassador, was killing it. I mean, he was killing it. I was like, how are your numbers so high? And he's like, oh, in Boston, he's like, they get a TV if I sell.
I think Guillaume is watching right now. Guillaume, can we have some TVs?
Yeah, they love TVs. They really, or a free case. You're gonna give me a free bottle with that? You're gonna give me a free bottle with that?
Wow.
Yeah, there's some interesting deals out there.
Yeah, that's to my point. The incentives that I just can't compete with at some point. It's like you kind of are in this little gap where, how much do you put into an incentive and how much do you just hustle on your own and save the money and put it into another, alley where it's going to work to more of your benefit.
Why does it work so well with the off-premise? Why does it, you think, it incentivizes those sales reps more? Brittany.
On the off-premise?
Yeah, you're saying the incentives work better in the off-premise. Why is it
a little bit more cut and dry? I think the sales reps who are focused, we have pineapple pins.
We got pineapple pins. Sorry, I love it.
You know how many calls I got for those pineapple pins when they came out, man? For off-premise, I think the sales reps and the buyers are just a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more focused on this is what I want, this is what I need, here's what we have to offer, great, done. And kind of a little bit more streamlined on that.
Yeah, I find it's very easy. I've heard that most people say that the one thing they do like about it,
I'm learning.
It's very transactional.
Yes.
It is like it's in and out. It's like you don't have to spend that much time. It's like I'm in and out. It's very fast. It's like you're either in or you're out. You don't have to constantly, the haggle. I mean, you do have to haggle at first and build those relationships.
That courting period is a little bit shorter.
Yes. You have the goods. So I look forward to hearing the journey and some of the tactics you put into place. I was going to say, so what are some, because obviously managing the distributor, it probably has, and I know you do it with Guillaume, he's your boss, and he does a lot of you said he's a great mentor, so hi, Guillaume.
And Francois, I work more directly with Francois on a regular in the New York market. But I mean, going into my first distributor meeting, all of this lingo, it's a new language. You kind of have to, figure out SMC. I had to Google that. No, I'm kidding. But there's things you just don't know. And, so it's nice to have somebody when you're starting with a company and you're being tasked with, working with a distributor. It's really important to have a mentor and somebody lead you into it for sure.
No, that makes sense because there is so much lingo, isn't there? Is that the hard? I mean, just sitting down because I'm sure, and it's also interesting. And I hate ever playing the woman card, but being a woman, there's not a lot of women.
Oh, I'm in the boys club. I hosted a dinner. I'm generally 90% of the time the only female at the table when I take, distributor out or what have you.
Yeah. Do you find you have to a little bit? What? Are you seeing it change a little bit though? I've been observing that I feel like things are changing.
There are certainly more women reps, etc., but in the upper management roles, it's still a little bit of a boys club.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. I would walk in a room, I'm like, oh, it's just a mile of men. I hope not to say mile, something offensive, but I will not. And you have to learn, and it's a mile of, but you have to, I'm getting older. I'm getting more refined as I get older. It's not being so crass, but at least I try to pretend. It is, and as a woman, you do have to hold your own. Learn. I find that, would you find it's true that, knowing your stuff, like being, maybe as a woman, you have to just be a little bit more on your game. You do have to be a little bit more well-educated about your project because people are looking for you. And you first get in there, it's kind of like, yeah, she's really attractive and like, but can she sell? Does she know her product? Does she know anything about whiskey or gin or, you know, whatever it is? Like you really, I think more than a guy does.
You certainly have to put all of your talents on Front Street, you know, and you know your portfolio, know the spirit, know the pricing, and you know they see you sell, and it's certainly, you know, Guillaume thought the on-premise, it's an investment into the distributor too. You know, my role is a direct investment into and helping sales for the distributor. You know, and you know, when I got hired, it was very trackable onto the benefit to the distributor. So, you know, these people do know I can sell, and there is definitely a certain level of respect that comes after you prove yourself on that. But that's, I don't think only because I'm a female. I think that's in any role where you have to kind of just prove you can yes. do it.
No, I think that's true, and I think it's changing. I mean, it's like, you know, I think sometimes there's still, because it is an old boy, you might have to prove yourself a little bit more, but I think that's eventually now changing. People are starting to see like, oh, they have an expectation. If you got the job, you obviously had some skills in order to get there, which is good.
And take it as like literally a chance to strut. And he doesn't want to strut. I'm like, oh, you want me to show you? Okay. Yeah. Remember, you asked for it.
Yeah, and usually the bar goes up higher and higher when we set the standards, right, Andie?
Yeah, take that as an opportunity. Take it as an opportunity.
And speaking of that, Andie, I'm going to put you on the spot there. Andie, can you give me your 60-second raps? Have you seen one of her raps, Brittany? Have you seen one of her?
I think I saw it at maybe Camp Run Amok in like 2014.
She's been putting them online, and they've been brilliant. So
I have not.
I want you, Andie. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot because I just love them. So pick one you want to do and go for it. Because if anybody watching has not seen this is brilliant.
Okay, so I usually like to incorporate some kind of song into it, but I'll just do it like from the get. So it's like, all right, so Boozer and Shaker here with another booze breakdown in 60 seconds or less. So for this particular episode, I'm going to focus on the acronyms, right? So earlier we mentioned on-premise. What does that mean? That means on trade. That is a bar or a restaurant that sells alcohol to the consumer. What is off-premise? Off trade, that's the retailer that sells full bottles, right? And then, of course, we talked about OND. What is that? That means October, November, December. So at the distributor, that's like the dreaded OND, and now they've even expanded it to be the SOND. Yeah. To include September. These are the heaviest trafficked months, right? Where the distributor is manic out there trying to sell in preparation for the holidays. An ROI, return on investment. A KPI, key performance indicator. So now I just broke down some booze acronyms for you.
Oh, I
love it. Usually I like to do them in one take, but
1 hour of lessons crammed into 60 seconds. I love you so much.
It's been great. I've been like the ones about gin, about whiskey. They've been really fantastic. But it was true. I didn't know what OND was. I was like, I'd be in a meeting, I'm like, everybody's like OND, and I was like, what the fuck is OND? Like, why? I have no idea what it is. Like, I remember it took me like years before somebody told me that. I was like, this is OND. Like, this is what it is. I actually, on the Brand Ambassador Academy that I've been building, I actually have a list of acronyms for people. It's like, here's a download of acronyms you should know within the industry.
Oh, nice.
Because it's like, you get in there and it's like, nobody told you these things. Like, why would they? And Brittany, you also had something really important. Like, actually, we were talking about OND, and you said you like to do something for you guys. You like to get all your goals done.
I mean, in an ideal world, of course. Yeah. You know, I mean, if I'm, you know, on goal in September and, you know, you're there, life is good. You spend OND supporting and during the holidays going into the accounts saying, thank you for a great year or whatever, right? I mean, in a perfect world, you know, obviously I've had to hustle towards the end of a goal and, you know, but, you know, if you haven't come close to hitting your goal by like November,
it's not going to happen.
It's a little hard. So, you know, yeah, in an ideal world, I like it to be kind of wrapped up before, or at least in the beginning of OND, and watch everybody be frantic around me.
Yeah, no, I think it's important because it's also about, as a brand ambassador and even new brand owners who are small, they don't know this. They don't know about that if they're really new to the industry, they don't understand, like, oh, like hiring a brand ambassador in August literally only gives them like 1 month to like, and they're like 1 month, October, maybe September, October, and they kind of started making grounds, but then no distributor wants to talk with them or work with them because they are just full on head down. And the only thing you can do is support. I'm like, you can have them, but their job is literally just going to be going into accounts, saying hi, maybe, but nobody's probably taking in a new product. Maybe some people will.
Which is still a good thing. I mean, getting that, one-on-one time, but also you have to remember in OND, the bars and restaurants, that's a very busy time for them too.
Yes, no, very, very true.
Yeah.
Right. They have Christmas parties happening. Hopefully they have New Year's Eve parties happening. They have all these things that are happening. So you do need to understand that. So when you go in there, don't expect a lot from your account.
It's also a great time to host, the bartenders that have been working their butts off and take them out to dinner and just kind of really build on the relationships and, let them take a deep breath for a night and just have a night off and treat them a little bit, and it's also totally fun. But, it's a good time to kind of do these fun little dinners and kind of say thank you for a year and really enjoy what we do and, imbibe and drink the spirits we love to sell and celebrate,
I used to make people cookies and drop them off. I used to make all these homemade chocolate chip cookies and exactly, and drop them off. Well, we're going into spring. So now that we're coming out of what's going on, and I know I didn't, what do you see accounts? What do you think, accounts are going to need? Have you had anybody talk to you and be like, hey, like, okay, we're about to open up again. Like, are people bringing in new brands? Are they just selling off their old inventory? Like,
it's a mix of both. It's a mix of both. I think it's a hey, show face, just be here. You have to be in 20 places at once. You can't stop right now. Right now is the time where it's very crucial to still be in accounts and support. Remember, they're not at full capacity. They're still barely making it, even though there's an uptick and and people are starting to feel like they're getting their feet back on the ground. It's not a time where you forget to go in and support. You just have to. I love getting a good crew and going to like 3 to 4 different spots and just really, supporting. That's all it is right now. You still have to.
Yeah. Andie, how is it in California? I know we're ahead. I know in terms of opening up. So what's it like there at the moment?
Same thing. It's like spots are starting to open up again. And even for all the parklets that were built up, I mean, here in California, we don't really have weather or the seasons. But of course, even during the winter months, it was certainly difficult when everything got shut down and then could slowly open up again, but outdoor only, and the weather wasn't super great. So now I think the overall feeling is that, again, things are looking up. It's an exciting and awesome time, right? But I think there's a little bit of a wink too, where it's like, okay, but we got to get out there, support all of the accounts that have been not able to do what they do best, which is offer that amazing place to go to, right? So it's go time. April Fools, that's tomorrow, right? I'm like, good, we're starting it. Let's get crazy. Let's get out there.
It's amazing. It feels so good to actually feel that energy come back though. The energy is palpable right now, and the excitement of people like feeling like, okay, we made it this far, we're gonna get through this, and it's also absolutely gives me goosebumps, heartbreaking at how many wonderful places have shuttered too. But you have to thank your lucky stars if you made it this long, and we have to keep supporting these accounts that did make it, and keep their heads up.
I felt like animal in a cage. I get fully vaccinated Sunday, and I'm just like, and then it's like, woo! Anyway.
Absolutely.
No, it really is. No, we're so ahead. I feel bad. Like we had on here a mutual friend, Julia, and who's a brilliant woman distiller. She's incredible. And I met her at ADI in San Francisco, and she they're so far behind, like England and things of that nature. Like I went to Balthazar. I posted this the other day. I've never gotten so many likes in one post because I sat down in there and they just reopened. And I'm watching the regulars come in, right? And then most of these regulars are above 60. They're like in their 60s. And the staff were so excited to see them, and they're so excited to be there. I literally had tears in my eyes, like watching the whole thing unfold as people were coming in, and they were just, and the energy of the room just like started slowly rising, and they were sending champagne out to everybody. Like they were just so happy, and the guests were so happy. They were just like, oh, we're out again. And I sent the cheers to Georgie Bell because she's a brand ambassador. She is the manager of the advocacy program for Bacardi in London, and I think she's actually global. But she said, they're in lockdown again. They're in lockdown. They won't be able to go out again for another couple of weeks. I'm like, holy crap! Like we are so lucky. So we're some of the lucky ones. So I was gonna say on that note, I wanted to, Andie, I know you have some interesting things going on at your job. Are you building? In your old job in St. George, you ran kind of like guest experiences, and this is going to become part of your job here at Hotaling. Tell us what's going on. Or am I wrong? Am I remembering?
Well, no, I think it's one of those things where there's always, it feels like possibilities can happen again, right? Yeah. And that we can be excited about moving forward into a future that perhaps is more certain that we can count on, right? Mm-hmm. So at Hotaling & Co. being like a San Francisco Bay Area based company that's both a distillery making our own spirits, but also a portfolio management company, because it's kind of both sides of the coin. But I think it's about moving forward in a way where we can build experiences, because that's what people want. They want a connection to the brand. And so whether that be experiential marketing or that be a distillery that offers tours and tastings at some point, I certainly believe that that is an important piece of the puzzle. And if these are two pieces, they come together in a way that's really complementary. So there's a lot of things on the horizon, I feel like, and I'm excited. I am excited because it's
There's nothing better than bridging that gap of somebody loving your product and then actually taking them to a hands-on experience and showing them how and where it's made. And it just is, it's a connection that is undeniable. It makes somebody just fall in love a little bit more, even more with the portfolio, the spirit, and all of it. So I love that connection for sure.
Yes. No, absolutely. Even as a brand ambassador, when you get trained, the difference between before you get to the distillery, or if you work for a brand that actually has one and not, like once you get there, then you can have that conversation. You can say like, I was there, and you met the distiller, and you met where the barrels come from, and you.
I'll absolutely never forget the first time I went to Ferrand in Cognac, France. I mean, it's just a absolutely jaw dropper, and the people behind it. And I'm sure, Andie, we've all had that feeling, right? Where it just, you feel home. It's anybody who works for a brand, if they don't have that feeling, you got to kind of maybe open your eyes to something else, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go ahead, Andie.
I was going to say, the moment that you go there and you experience all that excitement that you bottle up in your heart, you then get to share with everyone.
Yeah, and you holy shit, this is my job. Like, there's a lot of amazing experiences that come from what we do. Like, I feel we're lucky. I absolutely adore my job. So
yeah, well, we get to translate it too. Yeah, it's so cool to be able to take it and then share it with others, because not everyone gets to go. So how do you then really take that experience where you had that visceral reaction to being in the place, and then you're able to share that with others?
No, absolutely. I was going to say, all right, so ladies, we've had so many great things we're talking about. I was going to say, I always end our show with some words of advice. So words not from me, from you ladies. I'm going to ask you a question. So if you could give any words of advice. People are sick of hearing me talk all the time. Any words of advice, or anybody getting in who wants to become a brand ambassador, or who wants to maybe become an on-premise manager, or somebody working in a role, Andie, that you have, any words of advice, like if they're just choosing to go from behind the bar into one of these roles that are a little more corporate or working directly with a brand, that you would give them.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Oh my God. I'm like, are we allowed to curse? I was going to say, give a shit.
It's my show. You can do anything you want.
Like, well, really take pride in your work. Never stop learning, right? I think that I feel like this came up somewhere where it was like, oh, the moment you say that you just know something, it's almost like you're closing the door and you're dismissive of opportunities. So the advice I would give is go with your eyes open, your heart open, and never stop learning, keep evolving, and don't shut yourself down, because every opportunity is out there for you to be the best that you can be and offer all of that love and affection to a brand, a supplier, a distributor, or whoever it is that you're going to work for. But you're always going to be a brand ambassador.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's the relationships. Operate with integrity, respect, kindness, and follow through on what you say you're going to do, and everything else will follow. Obviously, know the brand, know the pricing, know the spirits. But I think the key thing is just being a good person, follow through on your word. It's just a common decency. Once you burn somebody, the next account's going to hear that, you have to operate with integrity and respect.
No, absolutely. I think those are all great words. Operating with integrity, opening up your heart, constantly learning. I think those are great ones. And I always say, show the fuck up. If you just show the fuck up, that's half the goddamn job. It really is. It's half the job. Just showing up, being reliable. And yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. That's my other words of advice. Always don't be a dick. That's usually
from camp.
I had to throw it in there.
Yeah, I like it. I was gonna say it's words that I always use all the time. It's like my personal branding sound. It's like just.
I love your potty mouth, Elaine Duff.
Thank you very much. So yeah, show the fuck up and don't be a dick. Our words of advice, but definitely keep learning. Be reliable. I think they're all, and love the brand that you work for. You gotta love the brand. You cannot. And we were talking with Brittany. I know we were talking with Andie. We talked about, it's like if you can't just say I want to be a brand ambassador or work for a company. I just want the job. No, if you don't love the brand and the company and the ethos of that company, you're going to be miserable. And you can't fake it.
You can't fake it. You can't do it.
You really can't. Well, ladies, this has been amazing. It was so great to catch up with all of you. We're so close to seeing each other all in person, which I'm very excited about.
Absolutely. Yay. Thank you so much for the invite. I was absolutely enamored when I heard I was going to be on with you and Andie. I got so excited. I might have done a little dance because I missed you, Andie. I haven't seen you in years. And
yes,
Jane, I love everything you do. So thank you for having me here. And let me
thank you.
2 cents in.
Thank you.
The feeling is the same.
Love it. Yeah, so good. I'm like high-fiving you because you're kind of above me. You can't really probably see that.
There you go. I'm high-fiving you back. Thank you, Duane, for tuning in. And for everybody who did tune in, thank you so much. If you missed anything, the show will be up on Facebook Live or on the YouTube channel, Celebrate the Brand Ambassadors. So please hit subscribe so you can stay up to date. Yes. One day I might get enough subscribers. We'll all be famous. There you go.
Yes.
Yay. Blood cancer.
Exactly. All right, ladies.
All right.
Have a great rest of the day, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Ending the broadcast, which means we're still